everyone. Hi, hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Allison Rosen is Your New Best Friend. A couple quick announcements at the top, and then I will bring in my guest, who's sitting right here. It's Heather McDonald. Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so the announcements. The Patreon page, which I have been talking about for months, is up. It is live. Patreon.com/Allison Rosen. You can go there. There's all sorts of rewards and bonuses and fun stuff. Also, I will be doing my podcast live at the LA Podcast Festival, September 24th. And if you can't make it there in person, you can buy a ticket for the live stream so you get access to the entire festival. You can do that at lapodfest.com, and use the promo code Rosen and you get a discount. And hey, if you're going to buy something on Amazon, which you are because they have everything, click through the banner on my website, AllisonRosen.com. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but it helps out the show. Thank you guys so much for your Amazon support. Welcome, Heather McDonald.
Hello.
Host of Juicy Scoop, New York Times bestselling author. You know her from Chelsea Lately and from After Lately and from a bunch of other things as well.
Yeah, well, actually, the last 3 weeks I've been doing co-hosting this show called Hollywood Today Live with Ross Matthews, and it's kind of like Entertainment Tonight meets The View or whatever. Like we do all like the light stuff, but we give our opinions. It's not just reporting, and so it's been really fun.
Have you? Yeah, I was going to say, has it been fun?
It has been really fun. It's very early. We tape very early, but I kind of into that now.
How early?
I get up at 4:30.
Oh, that is early.
Yeah, and then we tape in Hollywood, and but I'm done by 10. And so then I feel like, you know, you've got your makeup done. You're like being pretty productive. Mm-hmm. So I've enjoyed the time that I've been on there. So I'm just doing stand up and have dates coming up and getting ready for kids to go to school. And haven't done anything for that, by the way.
What was your original aspiration?
My original aspiration, I guess, to be like on a sitcom would be like the ultimate. Mm-hmm. So when I started doing stand-up, I thought it was the best way to showcase yourself to get an agent. And I even said, well, I'm not doing this to like play Vegas one day. And this girl goes, God, I would die to play Vegas. This other girl who stand with, and I'm like, oh. And then I have played Vegas, so that's pretty great. But that's kind of what I thought, well, you know, not a lot of girls are cute and stuff, but not everybody can be funny. So since I'm funny, I should try this. And I always wanted to do it. And then I had a horrible job at a college I was like an assistant buyer at a department store. And so my friend, who also hated the job, gave me a Learning Annex magazine and made me go to, I think it was the Radisson in Santa Monica. There was a little class there.
Oh, that's so great that you got your start at Learning Annex.
I did. And I took that little class. And I made the strangers laugh, and I got in my Toyota Celica, and I said, Heather, your life is now changed. Truly, I said
really?
It. Yeah.
And you were right, though.
I was like, yeah. I'm like, I'm going to do this now. I've been thinking about it for years, and I was afraid to do it. Like, even in high school, my music teacher said, I don't know why you're going to USC to go to college. You should just try to be a stand-up. That's what you should do. And I was like, oh, my God. Like, what teacher at a private all-girl high school tells you to do that? But
right.
This guy did. But I still went to college.
What did you study at USC?
I studied communications with like a business minor where you could take like marketing. And I did that because growing up in LA, I just, I didn't want to, you know, have my parents spend $100,000 and then be a waitress at 27. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, even though I knew that's what I wanted to do, I was afraid to pursue it because we're so jaded here. And then towards the end of my senior year, after I'd already been accepted to SC, I did like this drama, like these one acts. And my parents were like, I think you should switch your major to drama. And I was just like, no, I'm going to run a business. And then I was like, but I don't totally regret it because so much of me is I loved going to USC.
You were in a sorority.
I loved the sorority life. I liked dry humping, you know.
You were a virgin till 27,
yes,
right?
I liked dry humping like chauvinistic frat boys that smelled like stale beer because I'd been drinking all day in the sun. I just love that life. I like chose that school because it was big and it wasn't going to go bankrupt. Mm-hmm. Because after going to Catholic school for so many years, they would guilt you all the time. The teachers would guilt you that they don't make as much as public school teachers.
I went to a private school from kindergarten through 8th, and the teachers had a huge chip on their shoulder too.
I was so sick of it.
Yeah.
And when I finally opened up to my mom, I just can't take it. Already you're getting Catholic guilt, and then you're getting guilt from these teachers that are we don't make what the teachers down the street make. And then my mom's like, and they don't have to wear a flak jacket. Was it flap or flack? Whatever the
flak,
bulletproof jacket is. It's and they don't have to wear those jackets either. And I was like, yeah, you're right. A public school teacher does have it harder than a Catholic school teacher, but they make more. And so then once my kids go to the same school, and I'm like, you tell me if they ever bitch, because I'm going to be pissed. You didn't have to take this job, lady. So it was always oh my God. And it's even happening now. My stepdaughter has 1 year left at her school, and I'm just just let the school stay open until she graduates, and I'm fucking done. Wait,
you said your kids go to the same school, the one that you
as
went
me,
to?
As me, yeah. They go to the same Catholic school that I go to. So there's a lot of parents that went there. No one was molested. It's co-ed till 8th.
Okay.
And then the all-girl high school my stepdaughter goes to. And it was great. It was great for me. It was, obviously it was. I sent my kids there. Mm-hmm. But I'm also is it the best school in the world? Is it the best place for them? No, but it's down the street and it's good. It's, well priced. And I'm I never even gave my daughter a choice. She lives with us full time. So I just said, this is where you're going. And she was like, okay. I didn't these other people, there's these other schools that you can go to. And then their daughter will want to go to the school that's 45 minutes away. And the one that's 2 minutes away, she didn't want to go to. I'm why would you do that? Why would you even give your kid that choice?
Right.
No.
So how many siblings do you have?
I'm the youngest of 5.
Youngest of 5. I know you have 2 sisters, one of whom you've
crazy.
chronicled.
Yes.
Yeah. So we should get into that.
Sure.
But what was your childhood like?
It was, I want to say it was, now I believe it was pretty traumatic. I think I knew it was traumatic when it was happening. Mm. I love my parents. They totally adored me. The good thing about my parents is that, unlike most comics, my parents knew I was funny, totally encouraged the stand-up, never was I can't believe we paid for USC for you to be at this bar doing stand-up. They would invite people. They just loved it. Mm. And even when I was a waitress for a little bit, they were she's a waitress at Carol O'Connor's place. They just brag about whatever I did. So they were the best. But by having these 5 kids, and my sister and I were mistakes, and they told us that. And they said, my dad would joke and say, well, your mother couldn't count a calendar. And my mom did go on the pill after my sister, Katrina, who I talk about on the show. And then a friend of hers, it was new. The pill was new, even though it was against religion and stuff. She went on the pill. Right. And then a friend of hers got a blood clot or something. So my mom went off of it and tried to do the rhythm method, which is counting, and then had my sister, and then had me. And then after me, my dad found a priest in San Diego that would bless his vasectomy.
Well,
so yeah, but I knew I was loved. They'd always be you were the best surprises and all of that. But sometimes I do think, and I've told my sister, who's number 4, who is normal, the attorney, I said, do you ever think that if mom and dad didn't have us, that the 3 others would have turned out better? They would have focused on the 3 they already had. Not that they focused that much on us.
Do you think that's the case?
I think that my sister, Katrina, who was extremely, born extremely jealous. Mm-hmm. And I think when, for a while, she was the only girl. She was 4 when my sister Shannon came, and my mom told me that she would find Shannon with pinches on her, and but then growing up, she was really fun to us and really liked us. But I just think then throughout life, it was a constant jealousy about how much my parents spent on my college, even though they would have done the same for her, but she chose not to go. And, my sister got the same Toyota Celica that I got when she left Santa Clara, the attorney. And then I got that same car, but my sister was furious that I got that car. And it just would get throughout, how much did you spend on her wedding, and all that. And it's interesting because my kids are not like that at all. They don't keep track of any of that. So then I'm did my parents breed that jealousy? Why were we counting Christmas gifts? Who started that?
Do you have that a bit as well?
No, I didn't care. Like when my parents, my parents gave a lot to Katrina's kids, but I was like, once I had kids, I go, yeah, but they're older and they don't have the money and we don't need it. So no, I wasn't keeping like a log sheet and was like, now that I have a child, we would like the $6,000 that you spent on whatever gymnastics put into a college fund. Like, and there's people that are like that. And I think that's just so stupid because I told my husband, I go, listen, if one of our children is whatever the thing is, created an app, whatever's hot 15 years from now and is like rich or just doing well. And let's say my other son is a firefighter and we have money. If I want to give the firefighter 60 grand for a house, I'm not going to give 60,000 to the other one that's like doing really well and doesn't need the money. And it's none of their business. But a lot of parents do that. Like every year, each adult child gets $1,000 at Christmas or whatever.
I'm sure my mom has a document somewhere with like down to the penny of every bit she's given me versus my sister versus my brothers. Like
because she thinks that that there's certain siblings that will get on it, will bother her about it.
I think my mom is just very focused on quote unquote fairness. Like I can imagine her saying, John, it's my dad, John, it's not, you can't do that. It's not fair to my sisters, who I'll call Andrea. It's not fair to Andrea. Like this constant, I mean, because I'm the older one, I actually am irritated by it because usually it's everything has to be fair towards my sister. Like as if somehow because I'm the firstborn, things just go my way more. I feel like there's this constant like trying to make it more fair for my sister.
I have for my two sons. So I have my stepdaughter, Mackenzie, and then with and she's been living with us. She's always been with us, but then started living with us full time in 7th grade. And then with the boys, my older son is the kid that life does come easier to, and but I say to all of them, I go, you all have different strengths and weaknesses, and I'm going to treat you that way. So don't. And sometimes my son will be like, we'll say that, my younger son will be like, if he gets ice cream, I get ice cream. Okay, that is fine.
Right.
But like all the other stuff where I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm not Judge Judy. I don't need to hear your trial. Like, I'm deciding who gets what, and who gets punished. And, my older son, nothing bothers him. He's just a 13-year-old. Now he's like 5'10", white male. Like shit does not bother this kid. Okay. But my younger son is sensitive. So if he teases him at all, I get really pissed. And, but now it's like the worst thing that you can call someone is a bully. So they freak out. They're like if I call my older son, I'm like, you're being a bully. He's like, I'm not a bully. I'm not. Like that's like the worst thing you can say now. So
that's so interesting. It was just a description back in our day.
But then I've also been like, you guys smell and you need to take a shower, and they're like, stop bullying us. And I'm like, a mother telling their kid to take a shower cannot be considered bullying.
That's just mothering.
Yes.
So you said that your childhood was traumatic, though.
Oh, it's traumatic because so I grew up in this house, and it was my parents started to do real estate, and they were just like really clueless to what my brothers were doing, and my brothers were getting into drugs and alcohol, and my one brother was selling drugs out of the house, and I like remember the day. Well, I did not figure it out. People would come by. There was like an addition to our house, which was their bedroom, and you could go through the garage to the door to the bedroom.
Your brother's bedroom.
Yeah. And so then I was like, God, my brother's so popular. These kids are just coming by all day long. Like he's got more friends than anybody I know. And back then in real estate, there's no fax machines. So like my parents were just out every night, like presenting offers, doing listing things. And finally, like, having a little bit more money than we did before. So, and I just, there was no grade link or whatever. So my mom didn't know that they were like missing days and days of school. And by that time it was just like a lost cause. And so that brother then was selling the drugs. And I think I even helped him like garden the pot because we had like a big flat backyard in the back. And so that and I remember my dad or my mom, somebody found the case with the scales and everything. So I think it was like
Did they know what it was?
Quaaludes and Coke and things like that. So I just remember my dad freaking out, like throwing my brother against the bed, and he was just like, I'm going to call the cops, or you can call your drug dealer, and the limo can pick you up. And I didn't even know, like, and my parents like came from like, they were like characters out of Mad Men, so they had never even tried pot. Like, it wasn't even something they knew or understood or anything. And so yeah, and then meanwhile, my older brother, that one is Jim, and he was like smart and a musician and everything, and so he'd like run away or live at a friend's house. And then my other brother was became an alcoholic by like 17, and he I remember like one day my parents were doing like a listing appointment or something downstairs at the house. And he kept going to the closet and like taking vodka shots, like on a Saturday. And he's like, "Hey, Pumpkin," that's what he called me. And I was like 8 or 9. He's like, "Hey, Pumpkin, you want to go down to the store?" Whatever the store was. It wasn't Target, but it was like that. And I'm like, "Sure." And then all of a sudden, like something just said, "Don't go in the car with them." And he was pissed. He's like, "Really? You don't want to go?" And come on, I'll get you some candy. I'm like, "No, it's okay. I'm just going to watch my show." And then he leaves, and like in 5 minutes, the phone rang, and he had wrapped the car around a pole. And when we saw, and it was like this big beater car with like, there was no seatbelt, and I would have sat in the front. And when I saw the car, I probably would have been decapitated or thrown from the thing. So I was like, I kind of knew then that I had like a gift for like good judgment. And to like really listen to that, even at a young age. And so, so those type of things, then, and then there was another accident, and the accident happened the weekend before he was supposed to go to this rehab that cost my parents $50,000. So they would always talk about, money, and I knew how much expensive it was. So then he went to jail for a DUI, and they were trying, it was just like a lot of, like, they never gave up. That was the thing though. Then he'd come back home, and they'd be like, "Why don't you try to, go to a trade school?" And then he'd say he was going to like the West Valley Occupational Center, and then they'd find out that he never was going there. And it was like stuff like that. Right. It's like all in the Serial Sisters series of my podcast, which is, I did it like in the beginning of each show for episodes 31 to, 35 to 51. But yeah, I think that's why, like, it was, then once they were gone, like my high school years were calm and fun. And then college was great. I lived at the school. And then after college, my life was great because I wasn't around all that stuff.
Right.
So, and that would come and go. Like they'd come and, they were living on their own. Like things got better. And then, so it was just like that. So that's why I call it like a serial sibling. It's just like, they're just like fucking nightmares, and they just keep causing problems. And that's what's amazing, is how many people have reached out to me because of it and said, "Oh my God." And I just got kind of a really great email that I'm going to read on tomorrow's podcast that comes out. When does this come out?
This will most likely come out Monday.
Oh, okay. So it'll be up now. But I got a letter from this woman who's like, "I was the serial sister. And wow. I have recovered, and this is what I do. And I know I have to have a job. And I know that when I visit relatives, I need to stay at a hotel." And, it was really, I read it on the thing, but it was like really kind of cool, because it's not necessarily that all the serial siblings that that people experience, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily, Dr. Drew certifiable, whatever diagnosed. It just could mean that they're like a kind of abusive to their siblings while you're adults. Like it just doesn't stop. The guilt, like the screaming on the phone, like your wedding will come up and they'll be like, "My kids better be in it, you bitch," just like stuff like that, and it just like doesn't, and then your parents are like, "Just have her be in it. We can't take it. She'll leave so many messages. She won't stop," and it's just things like that, until I finally stopped after the cops were called at my son's first birthday is when I got the first restraining order.
Do you still have a restraining order?
Yes, I have my third, and it's got like maybe 3.5 years left. So far she's respected it. And I, as people are like, "Does she know you're talking about it?" And I'm like, I think that she might, but she knows she can't call me. So I feel lucky, and I it's my story to tell. So there's no legal reason why I can't tell this story. So, I mean, I did change her name, and she has a different last name.
I do. Okay, I want to get into that, but I just want to ask a couple questions about
Sure.
what got us up to this point. Do you consider your brothers serial siblings as well? Or?
The one that the one that was the alcoholic, yes, but because he's done some awful things. But he's really he's more like, I think he's schizophrenic. Mm-hmm. And I really think that when the bad things happened, I found this out, and this was very disturbing. Right now he's in jail, and, he went crazy and attacked people. And so he's doing 4 years. And he sent my other brother, the musician, a letter, and my brother read it to me. And he basically said what happened. And what happened was he was in jail before because he had a psychotic episode and went off his meds and attacked my parents. So he did 18 months for that.
Did he hurt them?
He hurt my dad, yeah. And the cops actually saw it happen. So he did 18 months for that. And then...
wait, how did the cops see it happen?
Because he threw a rock through their window. They had been living with, he'd lived with them and everything, and they just got him on Social Security, and which I didn't think was a good idea. I think people should have a job. I just don't. There's no way to check it. It's not here's your check, now do 5 hours at a veterinarian shelter. They just don't have to do anything,
right.
and then they become miserable, or what in his case, what happened was, so with that he. So then the cops came and they were like, well, he's gone now or whatever. And the cops were like, well, we're just going to stay down the street. And then he broke another window. And my dad, who's this old Marine, came out and was like, hey, motherfucker, you're not going to ruin my house. And he just ran at him. And because my dad was 80 something and he's, was 40 something, my dad was hurt. They saw it and my parents said, yeah, well, I guess you can't stop a prosecution when it's something like that.
Right.
But then when he got out, my parents forgave him and they were like, can't he come to Christmas? And I was like, no, I don't want him around my kids because when he goes, oh, he's perfect. He's great now. He's nothing like that. I go, I know, but when he goes off his meds, he's going to freak out on us. And I don't live behind gates. And
yeah.
And sure enough, that happened.
And he came after you guys?
Yeah. So that exact same thing happened. And what was sad is when what I found out about one of the last psychotic episode that put him in jail, he said, in the letter that, the medication he was taking, his probation ran out. And it was going to be $240 without probation paying for his meds. And so he's like, fuck it. And I was like, oh my God, what is wrong with our system? Now, here's the thing. I'm sure if he knew where to call and had someone telling him what to do, right. I'm not saying the state of California wouldn't have given him that medication. But you know how that bureaucracy, all that stuff works. You either know how to work welfare or you don't. I've never signed up for any of that. So for me, I would probably have to hire a consultant to get food stamps. But other people know how to do that. So I'm assuming, but I would think that somewhere at the end of the, probation, someone would be like, where's your medication? And you know what? Maybe someone did.
Right.
And my brother lost the piece of paper. He's very disorganized and messy. His car was always dirty. He's like that. Mm. But he did manage for a good chunk of his life to keep a job for 7 years and do these things when he was on meds. And so that's what's so scary about, because you go off it and you're like, I don't think I need any more. I feel great, and that's just, and then, so this is a depressing.
That's what I'm
it's
into.
It's juicy, but it's depressing.
Depressing.
Okay. Yeah.
So given, it sounds like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like the trauma of your childhood was a lot of chaos and conflict and substance abuse and erratic personalities and things
yes,
like
as
that.
a small child, yes.
So how are you around that kind of stuff now?
Well, I never, I was terrified of pot. I did not want to try it. I thought the minute you smoked a joint, you became an instant loser. I'm not a fan of pot now. I am fine with it becoming legal, but because of, it's a waste to put these people in jail and all that. But like with my sons, now that it's basically legal here, they see the green shops everywhere. I want to put it in their brain that it's a loser drug. Sorry to all the pot smokers, but I told my son, I go, listen, your brain as a male is not going to finish completely maturing until 30. And certainly your growth and everything will be stunted by smoking pot too young. So he goes, so then I can try pot at 30? And I go, yeah, try it at 30. 30, chances are you won't become addicted and it's not going to stop your career, When you start it too young,
right.
So then I'll point out guys that I see, I'll see a group of guys walking into a green shop. We call it a green shop. And I go, look at those guys going to the green shop, 3:00 on a Wednesday. They don't have a job. You know why? Because they started smoking pot at 13. Should I just say that, So they're kind of in their brain, it's not
right.
cool. I'm not saying they're never going to do it. I just try to and they see us and, we drink. And, but I went to this thing when my daughter was a freshman and I said, now, if we're drinking, are you telling the kids that we're fucked up alcoholics? And he goes, no, because I asked the girls, if your parents drink, are they passing out? Are they changing their behavior? Are they leaving the home drunk? And so I remember one time I was in the jacuzzi and I had a glass of wine and my son wanted to play with the plastic cup. So he's like, finish that so I can play with it. And my daughter was like, she's social drinking right now. She's sipping it, Brandon. And I was like, good, because too many kids actually either make a vow to Christianity. Right. They're either not doing anything, including sex, drinking, just having the boringest life ever. Or they're blowing everyone in school and getting wasted. Mm. And it's when we were in high school, I would have 2 Bartles and James on a Friday night. I wasn't always getting to the point of oblivion. And so it's you need to teach them that there's a medium a little bit.
Right. But how are you around other people's substance abuse or unpredictable
Well, the thing about it is if you are not, I've never tried cocaine in my life because I thought that would be the drug that I would love. Something that would curb my appetite and want me to talk more about myself. Keep me up all night, have a lot of energy. I love cocaine themed movies. It's my favorite kind of genre. Yeah, Lesson Zero. Mm-hmm. Anything about drug lords that just deal in cocaine and fancy parties and slinky dresses and yachts. So I never wanted to try it when I was offered. And then once people know that you don't do the drugs, they never let you know that they're doing it. Yeah. Have you ever realized that?
Well, yeah. What I realized
or you don't get invited. You just don't get invited to those things.
Yeah, that's what I realized is how
and it's
was
I'm not judgy,
yeah.
but I think they are a little bit shameful. And so they don't want the non-drug person around.
Right. They want it to be a safe environment for their drug use.
Right.
So, God, I want to ask about staying a virgin until 27 and about your sister. Let's just talk about the virginity. Right
okay,
now.
Sure. There's a virgin on a Bachelor in Paradise right now.
Which one?
She was she's been on.
Leah? Is that her name?
She's really pretty. She was on. Obviously, she was on The Bachelor. I can't remember which one. Then she was on Bachelor in Paradise last summer, and now she's back. And she cries a lot, and she's a virgin. And it's exactly that would be me. That would have been if these shows were around. In fact, when I was 23 or 4, I wrote a letter to MTV trying to get on Road Rules. And my kicker was that I was a 24-year-old virgin.
I feel like they should have snapped you up.
I think maybe I didn't send it, or maybe I didn't know how to send it, or you had to do a tape, and it was you had to tape yourself on VHS or something. I don't know how to do that, So but I loved The Real World. I loved it so much. Mm. And so... I had a friend, you should do that, So I always loved reality TV. So my friends were always, so later on, people were like, oh my God, you would have totally been on The Bachelor. I was on Studs.
Oh, really?
Do you even remember that show?
I remember the name of it. What?
It was like a strip show. So it was 5 shows a night, and you would go on dates. They would not film the dates.
Yes.
So there was 2 guys and 3 girls. So I went on 2 dates, and the guys went on 3 dates. And then the producers would call you after, and they would ask you about the dates. And then they would like kind of manipulate your words to be funny. Mm-hmm. So like I remember one guy said, well, I didn't like him, but you know, I think my mom thought he was nice looking. And then they'd say like, who said he had a face only a mother could love? You know, and that was when I started to realize, oh my God, these producers, blah, blah. And I felt really guilty. Oh my God, I'm going to hurt this guy's feelings because he thinks I like him. But anyway, this 27-year-old like Israeli realtor picked me. And so we won, but we never went on our date after that.
What do you win? Just
like a weekend trip to Cabo or whatever. Yeah. But I think so many people don't take you up on it because are you really going to go you have to go with that person, right, and there's no like chaperone or anything because it's the show's over.
Right.
So it was a very cheap show, you know, to do. Mark DiCarlo
was that the host? I totally remember. I can see Studs. I can see the logo.
This girl, I was at a bar in Manhattan Beach called 11th Street or something like that. And I was going to be I was summer between my junior and senior year at SC, and I was approached by like a casting person, and all my friends were like, you have to do it. You have to do it. And my parents were always like, you've got to be on Love Connection when you're 21. But this one you didn't have to be 21 for. So I did it at 20. Mm-hmm. And, but I remember after it aired, a lot of people watched it. And after it aired, I went to Stratton's in Westwood, which was like Thursday nights in the summer was where you wanted to go. So my thing aired, and all these people were like, were you just on Studs? Did I just see you on Studs? And I was like, that gave me the bite. Like I fucking love
first TV.
Love being recognized. Love it. And, you know, and there's been times where I've done a show and then I didn't do things for years. So like I'd get a little of it and then people just forget. And so I like it though.
So staying a virgin till 27.
Yes. Oh,
do you consider yourself a late bloomer?
Yeah. You know, I'm such a late bloomer that I got my driver's license before I got my period.
When did you get your period?
16, but I was driving before it came.
Did you fret about that?
No, because my mom, who was like a beauty queen, like with huge tits and a perfect body, she told me she didn't get her period till she was 21 because she had to go to a doctor who gave her like a shot. So then my 2 other sisters got it like 14 and 15. So we were all late.
Yeah.
So and then once I got it, I didn't want it because I was almost like, what if I have sex? If I haven't had my period, I won't get pregnant. Like I was always looking for a boyfriend, you know? And then I thought once I got my period, I'm like, oh, I'm going to get fat now. But I didn't get fat. And, but anyway, so yeah. And then I even grew like a couple inches like my first year of college.
Mm-hmm.
How
tall are you?
I'm like 5'9" now. Okay. I feel like I'm shrinking as my son gets taller. I feel like I'm shrinking, but, no, I think I'm like 5'9" ish.
So, sorry, go ahead.
No, so in watching this girl, she said they asked her about it last night. He's like, most guys were not intrigued after a certain age. They're really freaked out. And I would think that this particular girl would freak out guys because she's crying all the time anyway. Mm-hmm. But I was like really confident and fun. But when I told a couple guys that I was dating, but they weren't my boyfriend, they'd be like, I mean, like, what's the deal? Like, they probably thought I was like screwing someone else or something, you know, making out and constantly like blue balling them. And then, and I told a couple guys, I go, well, the reason why we haven't slept together is because I haven't slept with anybody. Like, and it was just like, no, I just did not want that. I think because they knew I was a good girl. They knew I was Catholic. They thought, one guy said, I don't know it was one guy from acting class. He's like, I don't know what I'm going to do because clearly we're attracted to each other. But if I get you pregnant, I know you're not going to have an abortion. And I'm like, I don't want to fuck you. Like, I was like, we're doing like a scene from like same time next year or something. And I was just like, don't worry. Like going to like where you're going to drive me to the abortion clinic. Like, why don't you just use a condom and not worry about getting girls pregnant, you gross pig.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, so it was a total burden. And now I still get embarrassed. Like you saying it right now, I'm embarrassed.
I'm sorry.
No, I wrote a whole book about it.
Yeah.
But like when I was doing press for the book, You'll Never Blue Ball in This Town Again, I'd be like sitting in the green room and something they'd be like, and next we've got a girl who was a virgin until she was 27. I'd be like, that sounds awful. Oh my God, that's me. I'm coming out to like...
You're like, what does she look
Yeah. Like I think that's why I'm like obsessed with like hooker literature. Mm-hmm. And anything that deals with infidelity and all of that. I love watching that.
Are you into The Affair?
Don't even. When is that coming back? That's
Pretty
my
soon,
favorite show of my life.
Really?
I can honestly say I think it might be my favorite show in eternity.
Wow. I feel like we might have similar taste in shows and things.
Yes. I probably don't watch enough scripted shows, to be honest. I mean, sometimes I'm just driving here. I just see so many billboards. I'm like, I just don't even know what any of these shows are.
I haven't watched Stranger Things. Have you heard of a lot of people around you been talking about it or no?
No, people talk about these things, and I'm just like, I like to watch TV on a TV. So
right.
I don't even know how to like get to the other stuff. I have to like ask my kids.
You gotta get like an Apple TV or Roku or something.
No, we have all the stuff. We have Netflix on our TV and stuff, but you don't have to like go and you have to like do a code. Sound like I'm 90, but I just don't have a huge desire. Like I'm like, I like to just go to my DVR and watch like my Housewives and The Bachelor and stuff like that. And then if The Affair is on, I love it. I've been into Ray Donovan this season. I've missed a couple and I'm like not caring as much.
I liked the first season of Ray Donovan. My husband was not into it, so I didn't really watch the second season. I haven't kept up with it. But that's one that I would maybe go back to.
He's sexy as hell. I love him. I like when he's like cheating on his wife and fucking someone, like throwing someone up against the wall. And if that's not happening in the season, then I'm not as intrigued. Right.
You need infidelity.
Infidelity is what does it for me. Yeah.
Wait until you were 27. It was a choice. Was it a choice? It was a choice, right?
Well, it was a choice to like say no to guys that weren't my boyfriend. So I kept going, well, maybe I'll get
What was the criteria for you? Were you saving yourself for marriage?
No, I was saving myself for someone to say, we are boyfriend and girlfriend. And it never happened. Either I would tell them and they'd freak out because I wanted them to be my boyfriend, or they would just get annoyed and think that I wasn't into them and I wouldn't hear from them. Or I'd get close to that and I'd be like, meh, I don't really like him that much. Like, I've waited this long. It should be someone I kind of like, you know? And then it just became like a fucking burden. And I, look back because I'd meet all these like older rich guys, not older, but like maybe 40 or 38. And I was like 25. And I could have like had rent paid for me. Mm-hmm. I could have gone to Hawaii. This one guy we walked by a beauty supply store. He's like, you need any shampoo or anything?
Oh my God.
And I was like, shampoo was expensive. Like a
good
stuff.
Expensive, yeah.
But I was like, no. Like, why didn't I get that shampoo?
Right.
I would just do meals. I had no guilt about eating a shit ton on a date. And getting like an appetizer, a salad, some mid-level shellfish or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's what I'm wondering, because I was a late bloomer as well, but it was really stressful to me.
It's totally stressful.
And I definitely was like, when's it all quote unquote gonna happen? But it's like, here I am and I'm married and I'm pregnant late, but I'm pregnant, and pretty much everything that everything's kind of
it all worked out.
Yeah,
it all worked out. Me too. Yeah.
But I definitely didn't feel like it necessarily would at the time. For you, when you were, I don't know, 26, how did you feel about your future?
When I was 26, I was doing groundlings and stand up and not having a lot of success. Like always, I remember I paid for all these agents to come because this fucker at Luna Park wouldn't let me just put people on the list.
Oh.
And but I was like, this is the age I'm gonna finally like get an agent. And I go to do my stand up, and then they wanted to represent the guy that came on after me. And I paid $64 on my credit card for them to all come in, 8 of them for $8 a person. So there was a lot of stuff like that, but I was like having fun, and I was doing real estate with my parents. So I wasn't like broke. I mean, I had credit card debt, but I loved doing the Groundlings. I was like, that time I was like in the Sunday show. No one in the Sunday show knew I was a virgin, but I remember one or two of my girlfriends there suspected it. And they were like, I remember one time we were sitting in the green room and they're like, wait a minute, are you? And it was like fine. The biggest secret. I guess it would be like, saying, are you gay to some guy in the 50s? I don't know. No, I just was like, did not want a new friend to know. Yeah. Like I was just, because everyone's like, were you molested? What's wrong with you? You know, and I was already challenged because I believed in God in this business. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh my God, I just can't take like the Catholic jokes and, you know, whatever, thinking I was molested by a priest or whatever, which I wasn't. But so finally I dated this guy that I knew in college, and he was like, I knew he was like a good guy. Like his mom knew my mom. I liked him in college, and he knew I was a virgin in college, but I think he figured at this point, you know, who the fuck is still a virgin? So I see him at this bar. We start dating, and he like has his shit together. He's like 30. He has a nice apartment off of Sunset Plaza. He's got like his own business where he like rents out studios and like produces commercials. And he wasn't really my type, but I just liked that he was like, you know, cool. And he was like, where would you like to go for your birthday? And so, you know, when I just got drunk, like I always do when I get like, that's the thing that gets you horny is drinks. And so then I just got drunk and I'd already turned him down, like slept over. I always would sleep at people's houses like naked. Like how I was not date raped like 25 times. I really believe in the humanity of men because I was not. Like every time I said no, and I'm not, please, if you've been assaulted, I am not making fun of you. I'm just saying, looking back, every time I said no, like naked, a boner, every guy respected it. So I feel very lucky. Yeah. So obviously I picked good guys to get intimate with to an extent. Yeah. To not have sex with. So then finally we did it. And I think we did it like once or twice after that. And then after doing it like the third or fourth time, I said, so what am I to you? And he goes, what do you mean? I go, well, like, am I your girlfriend? He goes, I just don't want a girlfriend right now. And I go, okay. And it didn't even bother me. And I was like, you know what? I'm so glad that I'm not a virgin anymore. And now I can just live my life. And this isn't going to hang over my head. I'm just going to date people. And if I want to do it, I'll do it. And that's the part that I kind of like regret, that I didn't discover that. So when people write to me, I don't give them like the advice that you would think. I'd be like, hey, be safe. Like the other thing I would do is I was so scared about ever being pregnant because I'm like, I can't have an unwanted pregnancy. And how could I let this happen to me when I'm a college graduate and everything? And knocked up at 25. Like, so I would take the pill. Like I'd start to date someone and I'd get the pill. And then you're supposed to take it for 30 days before you bone. So I'd take it. But by the time it got to the 30 days, the guy had left and wasn't interested anymore. So then I'd like throw the pills away. I'd be like, well, now why am I on the pill? And I'd be on the pill for a couple of months. I'll forget it. Then I have to go get another prescription. And so yeah, then I was, you know, and then I just dated one other guy, which he was just cute and fun. And then I met my husband. So I've only had 3 penises.
Do you wish you'd had more?
Yes. Totally.
Hence the infidelity fantasy.
Yes, I absolutely do. I think it's a bummer, but I'm finally over it.
What allowed you to get to this place of being over it?
I just I don't care anymore. Like, I don't want to get divorced. I know he's a really good husband. We've been together 20. We've been together 16 years, married. And, I don't know. I think there was a few years in there where I would be really tempted and like really horny, like on the road. And maybe I even looked better in a bikini than I do today, but I just don't care. I just feel like I think there's like scary years. I think we just did a story on Hollywood Today Live that the time that most people have an affair, the highest age of having an affair is 39. And I'm past 39. So it's like, you know, you've been married, you're ending, you know, you're scared about turning 40. You're like, is this all that there is? And I actually have this joke in my act where I say, I told my husband, like, if we can hang on for about 5 more years, we'll both be just unattractive enough to realize that we can't do any better. Like, this is it. And I think a lot of it is like, is this it? Is there someone else out for me? Or like, there was a time where a lot of my friends were getting divorced and dating like hot guys or richer guys than our husbands. And I was like, oh, but with me, I can't find anyone that would put up with me besides him. I mean, I talk about him so much in my act that what would I do if we got divorced? It's become my act. Staying married is my brand.
Yeah, I was thinking the other day, about all the people I know who, when we were younger, there was so much chaos and turbulence or just how difficult it was to be young and single and dating. And now we're all kind of settled down. And this is not an original question, but what I was wondering is, it's like, are we settled down because we met the right person, or did we meet the right person because we were in the process of settling down? I feel like it's both.
mean, I do feel like I don't believe that there's only one person in this life. And I don't believe that if you get divorced, it was in any way a failure. Like, your life grows and that the person that you married may change. You may change. It's like how you go with the change. So, I mean, I feel lucky that my husband and I have a really good friendship, but we've like had hard years and hard times and, where, I mean, I'm just like, oh my God, do you hate me? But, today.
What has made you wonder that?
Just like, there was just times where like, when I was just working so much, like it's taping Chelsea Lately, and then we'd tape After Lately at night. So we'd do the show all day, and then After Lately we'd tape. And my son was only like 5 at the time, my younger son. And there were like 3 days where I never even saw him because I'd come home at like 12 and then have to get up at, he was like in preschool. So he wasn't even up when I'd wake up, and then I'd go. And my husband was really like the stay-at-home dad during those years. So then I was getting like resentful that, there's just times like there's hard times, and I just think that now we're just like all in a better place. I'm like waiting for the shoe to drop. Like, everything's going pretty well right now. So I'm like, now my really moody stepdaughter is finally like maturing and, being more pleasant. So I'm like, okay, now the 13-year-old son is probably going to freak the F out. I don't know. Cause he's like so great and fun right now.
The space has opened up.
Yeah.
For a freak out.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about something, juicy.
Okay.
I didn't know until this morning. I don't know how I missed it. You kind of had a feud is sort of the wrong word, but Chelsea,
what it was?
Something between you and Chelsea.
It was really like a really crazy, honestly, like it was bigger than a misunderstanding, but in a nutshell, I did a podcast. And I was very honest in talking. And doing so, I said a lot of self-deprecating things about myself. One being that I have a fear of being fired. Okay. So they took that sentence and gave it to TMZ.
I think the quote was
5 days before the podcast was available for anyone to listen to.
Oh, the host did?
Yes. Theo Vaughn and whoever the guy that I can't remember, Mike or something. Matthew, who does the pod, and they held the podcast for like 6 weeks. First of all, I was like, I thought it'd come out. Like, I didn't even think, I did so many podcasts that I didn't get even a tweet about, that I was like, I guess no one listened to this one, So, and so they put that in the headline, and they actually even put a picture of me from a red carpet that was a haunted mansion. So I did like a scary face. So it was like, Heather McDonald is terrified of her life working for Chelsea Handler. And then, so then everybody was either just reading the headline or even just reading the article, which wasn't, didn't say much. They were just, again, taking the words out of context. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't answer one tweet. I was freaking out. I finally listened to the podcast on Tuesday morning. So the story came out Saturday. Tuesday morning, I wake up and I listen to it. And I was like, whew. because I couldn't remember what I said. I'm like, oh, that wasn't bad at all. That was really fun. I said very complimentary things about her, my time there. But I was being honest.
Because I listened to it.
Okay.
And I felt a bit.
Tell me what you thought, because
I felt like they were trying to dig, and you were defending her at times.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But I was also like, you know what? The show's been off for a year and a half. We're not hanging out. She's moved on. She's got her show. We're not working on it. I'm not working on it. Like, I'd done so many interviews, like, on the road where people would be like, how's Chelsea? Where's Chewy? And I would go, oh, we're all great. Like, so I felt like, in respect to Chelsea, I was like, I'm going to be fucking honest. She's honest. I just heard her on a radio show driving to that podcast. I just heard her on a serious radio show. So, where she was like, yeah, I, a lot of relationships ended with the show ending, as they should, and I'm excited about this new time. So I was like, you know what? It's all good.
Right.
It's all good. Everything's fine. It was such a great time. I'm doing my podcast. I'm loving where my career is going. So I was just really honest when they asked me. And after doing my podcast for 6 months, I had become so honest. And then one of the reasons I started my podcast was because I was testing for a lot of daytime talk shows. And I was getting really scared that I might say a politically incorrect thing, and they would go like, veep me or whatever. What do you call it? Where they not veep you, they vet you.
Oh, right.
So where they'd vet you, and then they'd find out that I said some joke. So I was like really kind of like being careful about what I said and did. So then when those things none of them went, I was like, you know what? I love this podcast because if people listen to the full hour, even if you say something kind of edgy or whatever, they know you're not a racist. They know you're a good person. So I was like being really honest. So then that Tuesday morning I heard it and I was like, okay, this isn't bad. Well, I'm driving to do my podcast and I'm listening to Howard Stern, and she's on Howard Stern, and she of course hadn't listened to it. It's Tuesday morning. She didn't listen to it. She just read the headline or the article and she was really pissed. And then she went on to say like a career devastating lie, which was that I sold stories about her to the tabloids. I don't know why she said it. I've talked to other people. I said, did she ever believe that during that time? And they said, no. It's absolute. Nobody knows where it came from.
She said that when she discovered it, she could have, this is
right. She could have fired.
She said. It's not word for word. But I remember what she said. But
yeah.
She could have fired you, but she didn't. But she stopped being alone with you. She stopped being social with you.
That's none of that is true.
That's what I was going to ask. Was there a moment where things were you guys good friends?
We were good friends. We went on the road and stuff. There was a time where we closer in the first few years, but she was closer to all the people in the show the first few years. It was unusual to be partying with your boss. Jay Leno wasn't taking his entire staff to Cabo, but that's kind of what we did those first few years. So it all sort of, she evolved. She had other friends. I'm like, I'd rather have dinner with Jen Aniston too over Heather McDonald and Peter. Like I would too, but it wasn't that. We still had stuff. I still opened for her. And, no, it's a complete and total lie. I mean, if anybody really cares, and hopefully people don't anymore, she was never in the magazines and neither was I. She told everything about herself on the show. Right. There was not one thing I could have revealed about her that she hadn't put in her books, told in a cold open on our show. So there wasn't anything. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, so my first thought was like, I knew I didn't do it. So then I was like, God, what horrible person at the show fed this in her brain, And I still don't know. I really don't think she believed it for 4 years. I think she was angry and then that popped into her head somehow and she just said it. And then it was like, it was a lot of publicity for, her Netflix documentaries. And it was horrible for me.
How so?
Oh my God. I never really received hate before. I really got very little hate. I mean, sometimes people be like, you're ugly, you have a Cabbage Patch face. But like most of it was like pretty positive, And so to just get people saying like, you ungrateful, no one would even know who you were if it wasn't for her. And I'm like, I agree. Mm-hmm. I I totally agree. Like, I would not be even talking to you today. Anything. I don't know where I would have been. I mean, maybe I would have booked something the following year. But yes, I'm absolutely here. I absolutely have my books, my stand-up, everything because of working on Chelsea Lately. That being said, I worked 7 years. I was there from day one. I was a writer and producer on the show. I made a very average, bare minimum income for a cable show, which everybody else got. Though we were featured on the show, that was very minimal. But I was happy to have it. It gave me, I could keep the house that I've never even moved from my house. I had the house. I drove a Lexus and I had my house when I started the show and I had the exact same thing after. So it wasn't like, it's not like I picked up at the grocery store and made a star. Like, I'd done a lot of stuff before and I worked really hard. And yeah, we all got a little bit famous from being on the panel for 7 years. But I was just kind of like, and I felt like, yeah, when taken out of context, I do look like a little wimpy asshole. And then like, the talk said I should have quit. If you're afraid, you should quit. And I was like, well, I'm so glad that these women in their 40s are confident about quitting a television show, when they have, right. Kids to feed. And the thing is, I didn't want to quit. I mean, that's the thing. Like, the thing was taken out of context, so I understand what they mean. If I was really afraid for my life, like I was going to be murdered, but of course that wasn't it. It was like,
there can be jobs where
you're not totally
tone and you're afraid that you'll get fired, but that doesn't mean you don't like the job.
Right.
It just
it's because you do like the job that you don't want to get fired.
Yeah.
So there just would be like an intuitive feeling that I'd be like, this week I'm kind of walking on eggshells.
And by the way, that is how so many sets and TV shows are.
Yes,
like,
that's what people don't.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not as bad when you're working at retail in Bloomingdale's. I'm sure it still can be bad that you might get fired, but no, the stakes are not as high when you're working on a show. And there's somebody, and I remember a producer said, we're looking for a younger Heather McDonald. To me. Do you know a younger Heather McDonald?
That's kind of awful.
It's awful, but I'm like, at least I'm a type.
Yeah. Did you recommend some?
No, because there isn't any.
Right.
But I mean, if there is, great. Play my younger sister. Let's do something together.
Yeah.
But it was, there was things like that. So, and, but that was it. And actually when she quit, which that is what happened. The show was not canceled and other people think it was canceled, whatever. When she quit the show, I actually thanked her. I was in Vegas with her. We're having fun in June. And I thanked her and I said, thank you for quitting because I would never quit. I would never quit. And I know that I have to pursue other things. And there was nowhere to go on the show. In fact, I was being put on less along with the other writers. They were not featuring us as much. So there was, it wasn't like I was going to get a spinoff or anything like that. And we had tried, like we had pitched other shows and the After Lately was successful, but, and if the show would have gone on, I'm sure we would have done a 4th season of After Lately. But so with that, it was just, that part was really awful. And all I could say, cause I got called to be on shows and like respond. And I was like, oh my God, people are going to think I'm using this for publicity. Right. So all I did was say on my podcast, it's just not true. And I don't know why she said it. And so, but it's all good. I mean, like she's doing her thing. Everybody's doing their thing. And I was just bummed that happened. But now, more than 6 months later, I feel like everything, for so long, I regretted everything. I regretted going to the podcast. I regretted like why the minute the podcast didn't come out, I should have written like a long Facebook thing explaining it. Should I have called her that day? What could I have done? Like, should I called her on Saturday and said this? I just thought she wouldn't care and I just thought it would get buried, you know? So there were all those regrets I had, but now I'm like, you know what? I don't regret it because it made me more honest. And it's actually a couple weeks after that is when I started to tell the story about my sister because I was like, it's the one thing that I hadn't shared in the books. I don't share about, in my, in my stand up. And I was like, so I kind of feel like it was a little bit of a launching pad, and in that launching pad of me going, well, you've got nothing to lose now. But I mean,
do you feel like it's damaged you?
I think it did. I definitely do.
Like in what way?
Well, who wants someone in a writer's room that's selling stories to the tabloids? I mean, it's like the craziest thing. I wasn't making a lot, but I was making a Writer's Guild salary. Am I going to go call Us Weekly for $50? And what am I going to say? Chelsea had a glass of milk today. She's no longer lactose intolerant. What am I going to say? Yeah. So, I mean, but there was like, then when there were some people that logically thought it out and was like, I don't think I did ever see her in the tabloids. I mean, so it was like, yeah, that's right. Because I never fucking did it. And then, the other thing was, if you watched After Lately, my character was like an exaggerated version of myself. So we made me like really excited to meet stars and stuff, which I'm totally not. Like I never ran down there and tried to get pictures or anything. If I knew the person, then I'd be excited, but I really don't care. Like I'd be like, ugh, now I've got to put on lipstick and go down there. Like I didn't even, but my character for After Lately was like, oh my God. So one of the episodes was Jennifer Aniston was having a party or whatever. And I don't know, but it was something like they didn't invite me in. And in the scene, I go, oh my God, Chelsea, tell me what Jennifer Aniston's house is like. I saw it in Architectural Digest or People, and she's got an infinity pool. I just, improv this whole scene. And so also when it happened, I'm like, is she confusing an After Lately episode with, like, all these things went through my mind.
Right.
But then, like, weeks later, she, texted me and was like, I know that your words are taken out of context. And then I just said, and I didn't bring up this.
She texted you what's happening to my voice? Had you reached out to her at all?
No.
So she just texted you unprompted.
She just said, like, I heard that it was rough for you and I'm fine. I just want you to know, I know that your words were taken out of context and I'm fine with it on this end. And I just said, the whole thing was really unfortunate. Excited to see your show. Like,
So you didn't say anything like, why did you say this?
Because I was just like, I didn't want to start a whole thing. Right. I still don't know. I don't even know if she'd be at this point. Like, I don't know if she'd even say, I don't remember saying, I don't know. It was career devastating. Like, I don't think I booked anything for like 7 months.
And you think it's because of that?
I do. Like, I was on Wendy Williams all the time. I'd fly out to New York and go on, not all the time, but I'd probably been on like 3 or 4 times. And then she did the story and she said, I'm Team Chelsea. And I understand she's probably looked at it like, I don't want a disgruntled employee, but I wasn't disgruntled. I was never fired. Like, I was just sharing. But I guess my advice to anybody would be like, don't ever talk about a past employment or type situation, especially when you've been there for 7 years. And I think for some reason, I think people were like a little crushed to think that we weren't like buddy anymore. Like, I remember my friend goes, I remember hearing that Laverne and Shirley weren't friends anymore. And that made me really sad. And I was like, oh my God, I never thought that. Like, it had been my reality for so long that I was like, who cares, Like, so, I mean, she's doing great. I think it's really cool what she's doing. She seems really happy. And, I think everybody's happy. If I saw her at a restaurant, I would say hello. Like, we're fine.
Are you upset with the podcast?
Theo Von?
Yeah, and his co-host?
Yes, I think it's unfair I think if you put the podcast out and you have salacious lines, that's fine. But put those sound bites or those sentences out when you can listen to it. Mm-hmm. By putting it out 5 days before anyone can listen to it is where I thought journalistically or whatever was kind of fucked. And so that pissed me off. But Theo is my friend, and look, I don't blame people for trying to get listeners, but it was the most devastating thing.
Does it make you feel better to know that I knew nothing of this until this morning? Because I know
Can we cut it out?
I know that when all the like Adam Carolla stuff happened, and suddenly I was on like it was everywhere.
And what was the controversial stuff that people were saying?
They were saying I was ungrateful. I mean, it's the same thing. They were saying I was ungrateful, and that I wouldn't know who she is without him.
Right.
And it's like, and I don't disagree with.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same as you. It's like, well, I actually had done plenty of stuff ahead of time. However, you personally, who are a fan of the show, wouldn't know who I was.
Right.
And I didn't agree with, and it's, it is a whole thing. But I felt like, oh, fuck, this is everywhere. So then when I would have someone on my podcast and they would not know anything about like, oh, so you're not working with Adam anymore. And I'm like, oh my God, you don't know the whole story. Oh, thank God.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know. Like a lot of people will come to my shows and go, we miss you. When can, and they don't know about Chelsea's new show. Mm-hmm. They're like, we miss you. I wish we could see Chelsea lately. And I go, well, Chelsea has a show on Netflix. Like, and they're not the audience or they didn't follow her there.
She's
weird. Finding a new audience. But like, I just go, thanks.
Yeah.
Now I just go, thanks. Oh, I miss you guys together. You were so fun together. I'm like, yeah, thanks. Glad that thank God you're still coming to my shows without being on TV. I'm just grateful for that.
I think when you're the subject of one of those crazy news cycles, it feels like it's everywhere.
Yes.
But it's like all it takes is someone not checking those sites for a couple of days and they miss it entirely. Like I had didn't know your story,
yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Let's take some questions that listeners sent in on Twitter.
Okay.
When we ask, they send them in. They're wondering how you have been. So thanks so much for answering these questions from our fans.
Okay. TSDCX says, if she had to have a crazy rumor spread about her, but she got to choose what it was, what would it be?
Ooh. That I'm like incredible in the sack. Yeah, probably that, because I just think I'm okay.
Okay. And usually I don't let someone ask two questions, but this one's good.
Okay.
Same person. Only because I've heard her ask other people, who is the meanest / worst celebrity she's ever met?
Everybody's really nice. Like when everybody that came on Chelsea lately was nice. Oh, the meanest one was probably I met Jerry Seinfeld.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't mean though. I was just an idiot. Mean. Andrew Shue.
Really? Of all people to be mean, what was he like?
I was like in my 20s and he was on Melrose Place and he had a charity called Do Something. And this is also hard because he probably did nothing wrong. But, I do think sometimes a problem with celebrities is that civilians or whatever you call them, regular people, are looking for you to misbehave.
Yeah.
They're looking for you to be rude to a waiter. They're looking for you to maybe be not the nicest as you're getting your keys to your car. Like you can't be distracted. Like everyone else can be an asshole and stuff, but you can never be distracted or, so I just remember I was talking to him and he was just like really rude, but he probably didn't want to fuck me and probably didn't want to give me the time. But so yeah, I guess Andrew. I'm sure he's perfectly nice now, and I know he's like married to some girl in like Good Morning America, and they look cute together. But I mean, yeah, everyone's been nice. I don't think people would come on my podcast or whatever if they had a problem with me. So
Michael Catherwood wants to know.
Oh.
I'll be with her at official Hollywood Today Live. Any prep you want me to do?
Oh, because we already did the show.
Okay.
Yeah, he's so cute.
He is. And lastly, Jenny Crownover says, please ask her if Katrina's voice was really as bad as she portrayed on Serial Sister.
Yes.
Okay.
When she's angry. When she was angry, she'd leave me these voicemails that were really exactly that. I can do voices. So if I do voices, whether it's my stepdaughter's mother who's Asian or my own mom or my sister, I can do it. Like an impressions is what I do. So it's like, yes, that's what it sounds like.
So I wanted to ask about your decision to air the stuff with your sister. You hadn't ever talked about it and you hadn't put it in your books.
Right.
How come?
The reason I did is because after the
but I mean, how come you hadn't previously?
Because the story hadn't gotten to this climactic point yet.
Mm-hmm.
And just having a restraining order against her, not having her in my life, I didn't feel like I wanted to like poke the tiger.
Right.
And I think the restraining order at the time that my two books came out had like expired. And we were just not in each other's lives. So it wasn't, I really didn't know what was going on. And then with so the whole thing that culminates the horrible story is it's around my mom dying. So after the and then my mom had been like, had died like, this is over a year, but after the Chelsea thing, I was, she was always threatening my sister to, not that anyone would want to buy an article about me or something, but threaten to, say horrible things about my husband and I, really bad, horrible thing. And so after that happened, I'm like, I'm going to beat you to it. Like, I'm going to tell the story. I'm not going to let this happen and then not. So I'm like, I'll just tell the story. And I knew that it was and I'm like, it's a juicy story, but it takes 3 hours to tell. So I'm going to, do little increments and hopefully you'll get hooked and then stick with the podcast. Yeah, I mean, I did it so that people would enjoy the podcast but I never thought that it would honestly touch so many people and comfort so many people that were embarrassed to have estranged sibling relationships. And I think it's like something that's really not talked about at all. Mm-hmm. You always hear about like horrible mothers or an asshole dad. No one talks about like how an abusive adult relationship, verbally abusive, Right. So people liked it.
And how has...
It pissed off my normal sister.
That's what I was going to ask, yeah.
It bothered my normal sister.
What was her reaction?
She wasn't happy about it. And, I said, yeah, she was listening to the show in the beginning. And then she's like, we went to Palm Springs. We're having fun. And then, 2 bottles of wine in. I'm like, have you been listening to the podcast? She's like, yeah. No, she goes, someone told her about it. And I said, well, then just don't listen to it. It'll be over in like 10 weeks or whatever. And she's like, she always really defended her. She is a defense attorney, which was difficult for me too, because I was like, when she go, I'm Switzerland. I'm like, well, Switzerland let Jews die. You know what I mean? Like at a certain point,
I often have that reaction when someone
says Switzerland. Like,
is that way too?
What? Come on. Like at a certain point,
if you're not taking my side, you're against me.
Yeah, at a certain point, it's not two sides of a story. Okay, right. Like enough. And she was put in a really hard position during this situation. And so, yeah, she wasn't happy about it. And and I was actually really happy when it ended. Mm-hmm. People are like, oh, I'm so sad it's over with. I'm like, I'm not. Like, I'll find other things to talk about. If there's an update, there's an update. But I hope there isn't. Like, I just, and it's hard because my niece has reached out, her daughter. And I'm just like, she like wants to see me. And I just feel like if I saw her, even though she's an adult, it would spark anger in her mom. And I just don't want anything throughout our 16 years of being married. The cops have been, on my property 3 times, removing her. And so it's like, I can't expose my husband and kids to, I would feel horrible if I made a decision. One of the things that had happened was when my niece was 16, we were like kind of talking, not really. The restraining order had gone away from the first one. And so I had her babysit, and she lied to her mom and said she was babysitting for someone else, and I didn't know. And she freaked out, and my sister came to the house, and she broke a wine bottle outside, was screaming, and the cops came, and my dad lived next door, and then she twisted her ankle, and she told everybody that my dad threw a brick at her, and then she tried to light this, then she came back the next day and tried to light this dress on fire. It was just, and I was like, why did I have her babysit? Like, everything was fine. And then this fucking wound opened again. So then it happened again when I had the funeral and the after party for my dad at my house. Mm. And my husband was like, why are we doing this? She was excited to come. And then she kept trying to like hang out more, and I kept pushing her off. And then then something set her off. And it was like, part of it was that I wasn't accepting her like it was 1995 again. And so that's the thing, like the boundaries.
Is she, if you were to diagnose her, borderline?
I think it's borderline.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I've heard. And you know, and so hopefully she's doing good. I mean, I told her kids, I go, we're just bad for each other. And I'm like, and you know, just be good to your mom. Like, even if things mold over, it would not last forever. Something will happen. One thing that set her off was an Instagram photo of this girl who she believed she introduced her to me, but she didn't. And we saw each other at a party. We took a picture together at a Christmas party, and that set it off. So it's like, you know, how am I going to live my life with social media and not inviting her to things? I mean, it was just that social media really hurts stuff like that.
Yeah. Because
someone's brain is like, I mean, I get hurt and I'm not crazy. I just, we were getting ready for a party to go somewhere anyway. And my husband's like watching Fortune's Facebook live feed, and she's at a party at Sarah Colonna's, and Chris Frangiola is there, and all these other people that I knew from the show, and I wasn't invited. But like, I laughed about it. I text Sarah, and she's like, "Oh my God, there's only 8 people. I thought about inviting you." I'm like, "It's fine." But it's one thing to see the picture that you missed the next day, but to actually see the party happening that you're not at, it's kind of horrible.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, I think that's what it is. But I wrote my niece, I'm like, I think about you guys every day. I really miss them. There was this little period between my dad's funeral and my mom's funeral, which was 7 months, that they were back in my life, and I loved it. But it's like, that's it. Like, you know, and I know some people might be like, that's wrong, but I can't. If I was a single woman, I'd be in the thick of it still. I'm sure I would have never gotten a restraining order. I'm sure I would have taken the abuse. I'm sure I would have lost, you know, days and weeks of my life dealing with a fight. But because I was married to a sane human being, I finally was like, no, you know? So, and I just think that's something that surprisingly a lot of people could relate to, you know? So.
Yeah, it's interesting that it really isn't talked about that much. And then there's people who are like, well, blood is thicker than water. And it's like, that is an excuse to hold people in unhealthy relationships.
Exactly. I totally agree with that. Well, like, one thing that Dr. Drew said was like, where is it, like, you know, I don't know how he said it, but like, is it codependency that you'd keep this person around? And I think a lot of people do have that, you know, but it's a certain kind of personality. Like, she is really fun, you know, and it was sad because, like, when I was starting to do the groundlings and all that stuff, she'd always come, and she was a young mother. So like, it was a fun night out for her, and we had this fun life, you know, and then I just couldn't take it anymore. Like, I just couldn't take like her calling me and just screaming on the phone at me. And there was no way I could say anything back, you know? And so, cause it was like before text and, you know,
right.
And then I'd like try to write her a letter of like, I just think we need to have our distance. And she'd read into that letter and be like, why did you say, you know, it was just impossible. It was like impossible. But I mean, I feel badly about the kids. But the thing is, I'm like, if my niece or someone gets married, I can't be there anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if we have a secret lunch and someone like sees us and then runs into her and is like that, it could be like, she could be at a place where she's like, that's great. You know, Heather's in the industry and this will help my daughter. Or it could be like, listen, just because your kids aren't great, don't try to take my good ones. Like, you know, I don't know what she would say, you know, like, so it's just like, oh God.
I think you're protecting yourself and your family.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's all it is, because I even said to my son who was 13, I go, what if it set it off and somehow we even got one nasty call because of it? He'd be like, we'd be mad at you and you'd be mad at yourself. I go, exactly. And the thing is with crazy people like this, the longer time goes, the less likely they're going to freak out on you. They're going to find someone else that they hate more. They're going to they're going to freak out on their landlord or something.
Right.
So let it be that person.
Right.
And not me.
Okay, let's do just me or everyone.
Sometimes I ponder on something I have thought or done. Is it just me or everyone?
Okay, this is where people write in with things they think or do, and they wonder, is it just me or is it everyone? So we read them and then say whether we all have these same feelings.
Okay.
Heidi says, it drives me crazy when people call a dad spending time with his own kids babysitting. It's not babysitting, it's parenting.
Agree.
I would agree with that.
I agree.
That never occurred to me, but yes.
It's really annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Aaron Herdman says, whenever someone responds to a text with the letter K instead of the word okay, I read it as indifference or hostility.
I don't. I read it as I'm doing a lot, and that's the quickest thing. Honestly, maybe they're driving. They shouldn't be texting anyway, but at least they're not writing OKAY. So it doesn't bother me.
Right. I think that I used to read it as indifference or hostility, but now I don't anymore.
I don't, because I've had people think, like, I've said okay, and then people go, really? Is that it? Like, and then I'm like, oh shit. So now I no, it doesn't bother me if it comes to me.
Yeah. J-Mos for A-Rose says, scrutinize TV and movies in a desperate attempt to see signs of a set. I don't do that.
Signs of a set? What do you mean?
Yeah, like to see the set. Anything artificial about, like to see the set that they're on.
Oh. You know what bothers me though? It really bothers me when people have coffee cups that clearly don't have enough water in them.
Yeah.
In a show. And also like a bag of groceries.
Right.
Where it's like so full. I really have a problem with the prop master, I guess.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
You never see a grocery bag that looks like a regular grocery bag.
That's like honestly heavy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A big like thing of like the tops
Celery.
of the carrots.
Yeah. Okay. Amanda Walker says, use vampire method to block a sneeze and either soak my arm or sneeze on someone's feet. What does the vampire method mean? Is that what vampire?
It's like you go in your elbow. You go in your elbow.
Yeah, you hold your arm up and then
you know
sneeze
what?
into your elbow.
That
Vampires do
listen. It shouldn't bother that person, because what it is they started teaching it in schools a while ago.
Yeah.
So that's why younger people. I'm assuming that's why younger people do it. And then now I pick it up because so you don't sneeze on your hand and then get it somewhere else.
Right. I don't think she's saying it bothers her. She's saying when she does it, she either soaks her arm or sneezes on someone's feet.
Well, then get a bigger elbow, because that shouldn't happen.
Right. But wait, why is this the vampire method? Although
because
I guess
you
like
look
Dracula.
Like a Dracula, yeah.
And he holds up the cape and comes into the room.
Okay. Makes sense. So James Leroy Wilson says, I only hear the word eclectic when it comes to liking a variety of music genres, never in any other context. I'm sorry, that is just you. I hear eclectic to describe a lot of things.
Clothing, your apartment,
food,
neighborhoods.
Right.
Sorry, dude.
Someone's bookshelf.
The way the votes are counted in presidential election.
That's right. Meredith Shapiro says, just mirror everyone. Put on a swimsuit or workout clothes and think about how appalled olden days people would be if they saw me. I've never had that thought, but I have had the thought of like, weren't they uncomfortable all the time in their olden days clothes?
I do think about olden days people and how thin they were.
Maybe no one took any photos of the fat people.
No, there were no fat people.
Yeah,
what it was is because there just wasn't a lot of food.
Yeah.
And so your snack would be a whole apple.
Right.
Not power bars and, big Chipotle bowls. And so, yeah.
Yeah, Fatty Arbuckle was like 180 pounds and 6'4". Like, he was not a fat guy.
Right.
I just watched Metropolis 2 weekends ago, and I could not stop thinking about how skinny everybody was.
What year is that?
It's a silent movie, so I want to say like 1924, 26.
Yeah,
and my mom was like obsessed with her waist size too. Like it would be like she's like, I used to just have black coffee in college. I'm like, what? And like the grapefruit diet. It was like grapefruit diet and like hard boiled eggs. And like, yeah, I think a lot of women, because the style was so dependent on your waist.
Right.
Like you really couldn't wear something else. That's what kept them really thin.
And people say that Marilyn Monroe was a size 14, but I read that was a size 4 or something.
She's today's size 4, but if you look at like vintage dresses, the sizes are all off. So like a vintage dress that's a size 12 is like a size 6.
Right. Right. And lastly, Sarah Simmons says, another behind the scenes Hollywood kind of one. When watching TV and see an actor wearing a watch, I try to see what time it is. Same for the books they are reading. I do that with books. I always try to see what book they're reading, but I've never done that with the watch. I will now.
Okay.
Do you not? Are you able to
No.
suspend your disbelief in this fashion?
Totally. I remember a film class said, look at the edit in not Unfaithful. What's the other one with Glenn Close?
Fatal Attraction.
Fatal Attraction. There's a scene in Fatal Attraction where he's like, look at how the edit is. She's in the bed. It's when they, everything's white and they just like fucked. And it was like they cut to her and her boob is out, and the next scene it's not. And like, so I see that. I see more like editing mistakes than like looking for stuff like that.
Right.
Like I'll see like, oh my God, that like her glasses were on her head. Now they're not. And just stuff like that.
Yeah, I always notice the different, like they'll show someone and then cut away and then go back and the hair is different.
Yeah.
I always notice the hair being different.
Right.
Heather McDonald, it was so delightful having you on the show.
Wasn't it, though?
Thank you so much. It really was. You guys, follow me on Twitter at Allison Rosen. Follow the show's Twitter feed, ARIYMBF. If you like what you're hearing, subscribe. iTunes.com/Allison Rosen. That's also where you can leave a nice comment. Jeff, where can we go for you?
You can find me on Facebook and Twitter at Colonel Jeff Fox.
Okay, and Heather, let them know where to find you and plug everything you want to plug.
Well, most important thing is Juicy Scoop with Heather McDonald, iTunes, Stitcher if you have an Android. Go. I've left podcast 1. I'm at Wondery. So you might have to resubscribe. You probably do if you haven't already. But there should be me in a red dress, and there should be 61 or 62 episodes on there. So if it's like 57, then that's not the right one. And heathermcdonald.net for dates, as well as the podcast has the dates, which is juicyscoopwithheathermcdonald.com. And I'm going to be in Naples, Florida next at Off the Hook Comedy Club. And that's August 25th through the 28th. I'll be in Texas in September. I'll be in Tampa in October, DC November 19th. So just go to the dates. Please come meet me. I don't want to be the only one there.
All right. You heard her. Go meet her.
Yes.
Thank you again so much.
Thank you.
Listeners, thank you for listening. I love you. Goodbye.
Hey, do you know about the Allison Rosen Show? We had a good time, but now we gotta go. Yeah, Allison Rosen is your new best friend.